on obstructions in meditation. It's a class in which I gave this lecture back in October 1st, 2012. And so this is Obstructions in Meditation Redo, or 101.2. And going through it, what I had talked about back then was good. But I just wanted to kind of like up it a little bit based on what I have progressed and emphasized over these past 10 or 11 years. Initially, there's three major obstructions to the practice. The first practice is physical sensations or pain, discomforts. The next one is scattered thoughts. And the third is drowsiness. These are all very common, especially once you've overcome physical sensations and scattered thoughts, then drowsiness will come in, because this is a different relaxation, a relaxation that you're not used to, something that makes you feel so comfortable you want to sleep. You wish you had this relaxation when it's time to sleep, and then in that way you would be able to sleep more comfortably. But this is a different kind of relaxation. It's a relaxation that enables you to be calm throughout the day. It's a relaxation because one is not generating attaching thoughts. It is generating the mind that is reflecting appearances. And so although those appearances are coming in and out of mind, they nevertheless are not seen as intrinsically the function of the mind itself, only just appearances of the mind. And it takes some time to break through these kinds of obstructions. Initially, the very first times when you sit to meditate, you probably have some very great success, simply because you've never felt that way before. To feel so comfortable to meditate, it's wonderful. And then after a while, the charm wears off, and then you run into to different problems. Scattered thoughts are very natural. We don't have to push them out of the way. They're there naturally. They're there because we put them there. When we understand that this is part of how the mind works, we're free from trying to purge the mind from thoughts. And here I would tweak this. This is what I had said back in 2012. And there's too many we's in that. And it is just simply, when we sit, we should sit with just mind, and the we should just step out of the way. It's a different orientation altogether. Instead of trying to purify by ways of samsaric clarifications, we purify things in a clear way from mind itself. And all we have to do is simply write out this initial tsunami of all of these thoughts that tend to cloud the mind, and realize that it'll slow down and get better on its own. We do this not from the idea of the self, but from the idea of the reflection of the mind. So when we relax and allow the mind to naturally be like a mirror, then the mind will naturally come to its own relaxation. Little by little, as one begins to hold on to the method, all thoughts that we have arising in the mind will tend to subside. That brings us to the obstruction of drowsiness, because at the point that there are thoughts subside, we think, this feels good. And then again, I was telling you, we haven't had that kind of a feeling that to be able to relax, so we naturally get sleepy. There is a Zen way of falling asleep, which is very useful. Shifu made it very simple. His way of falling asleep is you just sit there and you just say, I am falling asleep. I am falling asleep. And by doing that and not thinking of anything, then it's just the same thing as counting sheep. You're just counting sleep. One of the things that Shifu told me about that was very, very important was power naps. And power naps are very helpful to overcome the idea of drowsiness. You can take a nap for 10 minutes before you meditate, or anytime you feel tired at lunch or whatever. You just try not to make it become so much of a habit, but in 10 minutes, if you can get into a deep sleep, you just only have to get there, just as if you're going up into space, and become weightless for just a moment, and then you come back down. Your mind is very, very awake, and when it's awake in that way, it enables you to sit to meditate with a clear mind. But in your day, especially as you're getting older, really utilize that idea of taking these little short naps to refresh yourself. And it's good if you have gotten into a habit of getting drowsy when you fall asleep. Sometimes that's just simply an obstruction. After we get through these three types of obstructions, then we get into something that's a little more common, and that's boredom. Boredom comes from watching the breath, getting tired of watching the breath, because your consciousness is used to being titillated, used to being excited. And sitting there and doing nothing appears to be the antithesis of excitement. The body is used to receiving sensory information that attracts it and entertains it. When it's simply observing the method, there's not a lot happening. But that is by design. It's designed to be repetitive, to allow you to stabilize your mind and say, I can control this mind. The mind does not control me. And when I talk about mind here, I'm actually talking about consciousness. The mind itself is there, but this consciousness that keeps popping up and presenting more appearances, mental impressions, emotions, all sorts of things, it comes up and it's almost out of control, because it's driven not by the self, but it's driven by habitual tendencies. We don't understand that. And so we're always trying to say to ourselves, quiet, don't think. But it's the habitual tendencies that bring forth this. And it's difficult for us to try to understand that. It's analogous to the story of the Dutch boy who tried to put his finger into the leak in the dam to try to stop it from leaking, but leaks are springing up all over the place. This is an erroneous way of doing this. When we just simply sit, we just let everything go by as if we were on a train looking out the window and seeing all of the scenery going by. We don't try to hold on to anything that passed. We just let it go by, knowing that it's natural. If you're on a train, it's natural. You're going to see scenery of some kind or another, whether it's buildings or plains or mountains, clouds. All those things will be coming by naturally. So we don't become frustrated when that happens. The more frustrated we get, the more the thoughts will come. And so this is very important to understand that these appearances come from habitual patterns. Shifu used to say that we must control the environment. We should not let the environment control us. And so the process of sitting, just sitting in meditation, is us controlling the environment. What is the environment at that point? It's simply just the mind environment that we are in when engaged in meditation. If we cannot control the mind environment sitting in meditation, how can we expect to control it when we're up and about with so many other sensory information coming in? When you're sitting to meditate, you're reducing down the amount of sensory input that comes in. You're not watching TV. You're not listening to people. You're not working on a problem. You're not doing anything. All you're doing is just simply sitting. You become very, very careful and quiet by its own way, by just simply sitting. It's difficult for us, though. We don't see the simplicity of this, but it's actually very simple. The reason we can't see that is because we still practice from the notion of the self. When we let go of the notion of the self, then mind is mine. What is that? What is mine? We cannot know that. How can the magical puppet know the creator of it? It's not that way. We have to turn the mind's eye inward so that we are looking in the correct way. When I say looking in it, those are such useless terms. I'm sorry to even use them because they cause confusion. It should be that mind is looking at mind. That's it. And when we say mind is looking at mind, there is no direction or locale or duality to it. Even to say looking presupposes that there is an observation. The awareness of the mind when we sit is different than the awareness of the samsaric consciousness. In the samsaric consciousness, we go, oh, I hear something, I see something, I smell something. And it's limited to that. But the awareness of the mind does not have the limitations of the samsara, nor does it have the attractions to setting forth more creations in the mind. It understands that the trick of this is not to create more disturbances in the mind. It's just simply to accord with what's happening in the present moment and be in harmony with it. When you're sitting to meditate, what do you accord with? You simply accord with the present moment, which is doing nothing. Why can't we do that? Why can't we just do nothing when we sit? It's so simple. Yet we don't. We don't do that. We mess the whole thing up when we sit to meditate. We want to continue with this mind that desires continuation. And the ancients said, sever the mind that desires continuation. We don't need continuation. I remember going to retreats where people are doing the slow walking meditation. And they're all going in a circle. And somebody inevitably is walking slower than the other people. That person is practicing well, but not practicing in an aware way, because they should be aware that not everybody is moving 1 micron per hour that they're doing. And they're just like a statue. They're not moving at all. So people are going to back up behind them. That person's not aware. Equally, the person behind them who gets frustrated and then goes out of the line and proceeds to pass that person, to get in front of the person. Where are they going to? They're just going around in a circle. There's no place to go. There's no hurry there. So we neither be this person that moves like a statue or the person that's so impatient to go around them. We just see things as they are. And we're mindful at that moment. We don't need to prove to people that we can be like a statue and just infinitesimally just move a little bit. You can do that when you're by yourself and you don't have a stack of people behind you. But the awareness is this mindfulness of everything there and the disturbances that it causes, because that will cause disturbances that go from person to person to person on down the way when we're doing that. We have to be mindful of the present moment and what the environment is that we're creating. When we're sitting properly, there's no thought. It isn't that we're sitting like a stone lion that's just cold stone and dry wood. There's a dynamic there that enables us to have the function of the mind operating. But since its function in that moment is just to sit, it is nevertheless very dynamic in that moment, yet only sitting. That's all it has to do. That's all it's charged with to do there is just sit. We don't understand that. We sit with an idea that we want to get somewhere, that we want to obtain an experience, that we want to get to a quieter place. We want to see something, touch the Buddha, whatever it is counterproductive. All of that is just reachings from the samsaric side. So we try to bring ourselves back to a perfect practice. It's a foolishness when we try to make ourselves so perfect. We don't have to do that. Just sit. Not you, mine. Just sit. It's simple. Honestly, it's very, very simple. But this is the biggest obstruction. Ekayana is the idea of just mind. This is what all of the ancients taught in the Chan schools, is just mind. And if you read and you pick up any treatise from any master, you'll see that that's all they're presenting is just mind, just this mind, this ordinary mind. And so when you see things, then you understand, if you can put down you, just sit. That's it. There's nothing more. And it's that's it without there being an it to it. Once there's an it to it, then we mess it all up. Thought I turned too many pages at one time. And then we get to the time where all of a sudden the thoughts drop away. That's good news. And we think that this is a success. I'm holding on to the method. But then you say, oh, my practice is very good. When I sit to meditate, I can solve problems very easily. Have you ever sat and worked out your life's problems? I know you guys. I know you sat there and tried to work them out, or maybe you worked them out and maybe tried to work them out, but you inevitably will do that. And it's not the time to do it. Once Shifu had a senior student that told the group after retreat, I was doing the shikantaza, and I was looking in my body, and I could see my organs, and I could see I had problem with my stomach, and I had a problem with my heart. It was very amazing. I could see all these things. And Shifu, he just shook his head and he said, very foolish. Don't do that. If you're sick, go to the doctor. Otherwise, just sit. Because we start getting into these things where we think, oh, we can solve all of our problems at this moment. And so we think we're very clever because the mind is so clear we can do that. What happened to the method? What happened to just sitting? We don't see that. We get taken away, and we don't have the ability to discern when we're not sitting because we don't have enough wisdom. The wisdom that we use is not the wisdom of samsara, where we go, oh, that's very wise to sort out all my problems. That way I can meditate and I can sort out my life problems at the same time. Not bad. Multitasking, right? No, that's not what you do here. You don't multitask. You just sit. Whatever's happening in samsara, that belongs to samsara. What you're doing when you're sitting to meditate is you're resting the mind, not resting your mind, but resting the mind. And so then boredom can come after one has initially had some realization. All of a sudden, your pain goes away, for instance, or your mind becomes very clear for a while. And so when you have a realization, I'm not talking about enlightenment. Sometimes I'll refer to realizations. Sometimes the Christians call them epiphanies. They're just something that one sees as if it's for the first time, even though one has heard the words, but has experienced it, a direct experience of something about mind. And oftentimes those realizations, they're very shallow or very temporary, but we take them as something very great. The more we cling to those experiences, the worse it gets for us, because then we have found our way out of boredom. We're going to look for realizations. And so we just keep looking and looking for those realizations. There was a story I remember when I was a very young boy that I read, and it was a story that was talking about this person who had been walking down the sidewalk and looked down, and he saw a dime. At this point in time, given inflation and stuff, it probably would have been like $5. But because of that, he saw that and he picked it up and he said, wow, today I am rich. Well, dime went a long way in those days. But he said, I'm rich. From now on, I'll be very vigilant just to look down and to see what I can get. And so he was always looking down. So what do you think happened to him? He had a very bad neck problem after a while. He couldn't see the sky anymore. He couldn't see the birds in there because he was always looking for that treasure that he got. We should not practice this way. We do not practice looking down or looking towards some realization or some treasure that's there. You want to see the treasure. You want to know the treasure. It's this very mind that you're using right now is the treasure. There's no treasure more valuable than the mind itself. There's no words more valuable than those that point to this treasure, to this mind. But we miss that. We want to personalize it to ourself and try to turn meditation into some kind of a seeking for a higher realization, higher enlightenment, a higher self. There's no self. The Buddha said, not self. So it's not a self that is the transcendence. The transcendence is mind. Mind is not a thing. It's not a subject. It's not an object. Mind is just mind, but we, from the samsaric side, cannot define it, cannot truly explain it. We use our practice to let the mind rest in mind, but we cannot try to create or conceptualize what that means. But it's very simple because we just have to sit with no thought. Thoughts, of course, will come up, but we don't chase those thoughts and create a thought of those thoughts. That's not it. Awareness is not thinking of the thoughts that are going by or the appearances that are going by in mind. That's not awareness. Awareness of this type of the mind's perception is just simply the thusness of that moment. We don't have to add a self to receive it. It's always being received all the time. We just don't realize that because of the fact that the ego comes in and superimposes itself into the consciousness. And then once again, we're tricked that we believe that this ego has to be there for us to function, not knowing that, one, there's no ego, and two, it is not in charge of anything. Three, it's a dream as well. When we begin to see things in this way and say that everything is powered by and driven by mind, then that gives us an opportunity to be able to sit restfully. We don't have to generate the notion of the self or have the self be present. It doesn't need to be. The self is also an appearance in mind. So then when we get these realizations, we say, this is great. But then all of a sudden, all of that novelty of whatever we experience wears off. And then we begin to expect more from the method. We begin to try to squeeze out some more experiences. You begin to expect that you've got to be going somewhere, getting something. So the consciousness starts searching for a new experience, something that it can cling to and say, yes, this is moving forward. This is making progress. It's a contrivance of the mind that takes one off the method because the habitual energy of the consciousness wants something new. It wants a new kind of experience. And we get rushed. Now we're looking for something bigger and better. It's not enough just to have one. We have to have 2, 3, 4, whatever it is the experience is. And so we put pressure there. And this is a pressure that is very insidious because it's hidden in the creases of the mind. It does not have a form. It is just this craving that's there. And we confuse that with the practice. We confuse it with trying to excel in the practice. We get tricked. We get fooled. It is why the ancient masters said that the following the paramitas, the Eightfold Path of 37 Factors of Enlightenment, they're all second level practices, not because they're not good. I mean, I lecture on them in many years, not because they're not good, but because they are trying to polish the mirror or polish the tile to make it into a diamond. It could be done, but it will take a lot of work. But instead, the shortcut is just sitting. When we sit and wall gaze, it is not that nothing is happening, everything is happening. Mind is engaged, but it's engaged with the function of sitting. But the mind is clear. But we should not expect to have some kind of a super mundane experience from that. Even at that time, if you have a super mundane experience like that, it'll mess you up more than it will help you in most cases, because you will confuse it and want to replicate that in future sittings. But you should never try to replicate or copy whatever happened in one sitting to another. You'll just make it worse, because you'll just be seeking that. I always tell people, if you want to get back to where you were at that point, you just have to follow how you got there, not seek to get there, but just stay on the path. When we're seeking for these new experiences, we put a rush on ourselves. Shifu, Master Shen Yang, equated this to a rice farmer. This rice farmer has no patience, so he wants his crop to grow faster. Now, rice crops grow in due time in response to rain and sunlight, and it is not something that it grows to full maturation in one night. But he said the story of the rice farmer that was so anxious, he kept going down the rows of the rice, kept pulling them up to make them look like they were higher. And then the next day he'd do it again, keep pulling them up so they looked like they were getting taller. But he was pulling them out of the roots until one day he went there and he saw that they'd all fallen over because they didn't have a foundation. There was just simply this farmer's desire to get somewhere, to get something bigger, to get a bigger crop, a faster crop. Chan is not that way. Chan is very simple. In due time, everything will work. The biggest crime that we can do when we're sitting on the cushion is sitting there and waiting for some kind of a realization. Believe me, especially when I started, I was very impatient. I wanted to get things right away. And I would sit and session after session, sitting through them, thinking that if I can break through all the discomfort and everything would be there. But I could not get there because it was a mind of attachment. No matter what, even though my goal was sincere, the goal was sincere in samsara, but the prize was mine. That was already there. Why would I have to wait for something to arrive that's already there? So that is the shortcut to understand that this very mind is the Buddha mind. Another thing that happens in our practice oftentimes is that we lose faith. It can come to a novice in a very short time, or it can come to a very long-term practitioner that loses their faith. They go, that's enough for this lifetime. I have done enough, and I don't need to do any more. And when we lose faith, It's because we don't have enough faith in the teacher or the well-known advisor. We don't have enough faith in our practice, and we don't have enough faith in ourselves. We have to have faith. This faith in self is very interesting because it's not as you think it is, where you say, oh, Gilbert, he has to have a strong faith. The faith in the self is the faith in the self nature of mind. The faith that this very mind is the true nature, is the Buddha nature. There's so many names for it, but they all are just pointing to mind, to have faith. We have to have this faith in mind. If not, then we only have faith in samsara and faith in samsaric practices. And then all we can do is become an elevated person, such as from the indigenous school of Confucianism, searching for that perfect person. But it is not a transcendence. The perfect person does not transcend. We have to practice in a different way. The same thing with Taoism, searching for the immortal. That's the last thing I'd want to do, is just practice for the sake of becoming immortal here in this world. I'm only here for the deliverance of sentient beings from here, not because I want to stay and I'm so enamored with being a human being. To practice in this way would be not that wise. When you're looking for a teacher, you have to find somebody with the proper credentials, someone that fits does whatever they say they do. And to me, I had great faith when I watched Shifu, because I saw he really practiced what he preached. And I could see the beauty in his practice, the artistry of Chan in what he did, said, and thought. You have to have faith in your method, knowing that it'll work. Shifu used to say, don't always change your method all the time. It's like a person that goes into a candy store. He would say, the little boy goes into a candy store and he tastes this candy, and then he goes to the next one, the next one, the next one. And initially they taste sweet, but then he loses his interest. And then eventually all he ends up with is just a bad bellyache from eating so many candies. Some people are like that. Some people are like that with well-known advisors. They jump from this one to that one to this one, whatever it is, looking for the one that's going to tell them the secret incantation or the secret thing that's going to deliver them. You need not have to have the most perfect, well-known advisor. It just has to be someone who's sincere and that enables you to practice sincerely. It is important that we do not let ourselves down. Have there been times in your life when you let yourself down, when you started something and didn't finish it, when you made a promise and didn't keep it? It's an acquired habit that many of us have. Maybe it started when you were a little kid and you were building a model and it was too boring or too difficult. So you put it down, or it was a puzzle and you gave up and you just say, I can't solve this puzzle. And eventually it becomes problems in life, becomes tasks at work. It becomes something that you thought you were going to do and just didn't do it. You have to have the faith that you can do it, the things that are before you. When you sit to meditate, you have to have the faith. Many before me have come to sit. Many before me have had realizations, and I too will sit, not to try to get realizations, but understanding that this is beneficial in my life, and I will try to do it the best I can. All of the results of it will come in due time. All the masters talk about that. One of the masters said that if you use the Hua To ceaselessly for a period of 7 days, that you will obtain a realization. And then he was very careful. He said, if I am wrong, may I go to a Viki hell, lifetime after lifetime, and have my tongue pulled out every day. This was not something that he was saying idly. He was saying that to give you faith, to say, if this master says this, he's really trying to tell you that this is the right way. He would not make such an idle boast. He's making that for you, so you have the faith to sit there and do that. But they talk about in the sutras how a person will come back lifetime after lifetime after lifetime to practice, and we want it in 5 minutes. But this may be the lifetime. This may be the one that it comes to. You cannot disregard that. There is no set time. And in the sutras, it talked about that where someone had achieved the shortcut and understand everything was created by the mind. And when they obtained the realization, the person said, if I only knew this, I wouldn't have had to come back lifetime after lifetime after lifetime to practice. But I could have achieved it in one sitting, in a snap of the fingers. It is the way that we practice that we understand this could be it. If not, at least we're getting in good practice. We're setting the seeds for future practice. And we're setting the seed for others to practice. And we're inviting them. And every time you talk to a person, you see a Buddha. And you try to harmonize with that person. So maybe in this lifetime, it's only a cashier or somebody that needs help or whatever it is. But you do your best to carry out your vow to deliver those people. Maybe it's just that smile in the future that person will go, something familiar about you. I know you. And they will trust you, and you will build on that, because it doesn't matter how many lifetimes. It is just a vow. When we see this, then all these lifetimes, all of this time is condensed. We can't perceive that because we're living in a dream. Who the heck knows how long the dream lasts? In one sutra, it was said that this bodhisattva had the ability to condense several kalpas into one single moment, several kalpas of time into one single moment. It is just because that we say the Buddha is in the present moment. It's not that it's the present moment of this time in the year of our Lord, whatever, 2023, whatever. It is just this moment is mine. And we don't measure things from the arising and passing, or the rising of the sun and the falling of the sun, or lifetime. In mind time, it's all times. We cannot understand that, but we can practice in accordance with that. So when we sit to meditate, what's the rush? Why be involved in trying to wonder how much time is left on the clock? The timekeeper will watch the time for you. You don't have to watch the time. There's no rush. So when you sit in the proper way, you're free of the obstructions of the idea of time and space, just sitting. We have to have this proper attitude when we practice. If we have a poor attitude when we practice, we'll make a mess of things. And sometimes when you're at a retreat and you hear the knock on the wooden fish, my gosh, when you see some of the people, it's as if like some vampires getting a wooden stake driven into their heart. They hear, oh, and then the next one, oh, and then finally, oh my gosh, oh. Now they're condemned to sitting for 30 or 40 minutes without moving. So horrible. And so they think until they get the freedom of click, click, ding. And then they're free. They can throw their legs out. And they're like at some kind of a race where the cars pull into the pits and they massaging their legs, and they're taking in water, and they're doing all sorts of stuff, trying to get themselves set for the next part of the race. When we have this kind of an attitude, we will not practice very well. We need not have to have this kind of attitude. And another thing, this is kind of my own thing, kind of a pet peeve of mine, is that if you're at a retreat, you don't have to hide yourself from people at the breaks. You just simply have to take care of whatever business you have and be done with it, and return to your cushion. Seeing somebody's face or anything like that is not going to condemn you to hell. But talking to them may. But the thing is you just move along, carry out your function, because you're practicing in that moment too. You're practicing, but you're carrying out whatever function you are. What is the function? Going to the restroom, getting some tea, stretching yourself and going back over. But you don't sit there and linger by the water fountain, and try to stretch it out, because it's a losing game. You're going to be sitting more time than you're going to have a break. But the break is having a break from the self. When you're sitting properly, you don't have to worry about whether you get up or you don't get up. It's not necessary. But we condition ourselves to do this. And so we're doomed every time we go to a retreat to carry out this practice. And don't tell me you guys don't do it. You're just going, oh, and you see some of the people that's so awful, they're walking back to their cushion with their heads down, and as if they're condemned to sit again. I understand that, especially if you're first, second time you've gone to a retreat, it's tough. There's no doubt about it. But some of you people who've been practicing for a long time shouldn't have this kind of an attitude. You should be able to have a maturation in your practice. When we practice in this way, the mind becomes, because it is very dynamic, incredibly quick in processing information. So quick that it enables a practitioner to be able to see the thoughts arising in the mind. Have you ever seen those pictures of like that are sped up where, or I should say slowed down, where a bullet is passing through a balloon and you see it going in that way? That is mind. Mind sees things like that. It sees it in a different way, though, that it sees it as the bullet is coming, the bullet has passed, it has exploded, all at the same time. It is so instantaneous that's there. We cannot understand that. We cannot see that. But the mind is capable of this kind of a way. And if it's capable of doing that, it's capable of seeing the thoughts as they're arising in the mind. But it would be like if you would take a glass of Coca-Cola and you or a can of Coca-Cola and you pour it into a clear glass and you pour it very quickly. And there's bubbles all over the place. And can you even see one bubble? How could you see that? Or the bubbles that are coming up, it's too dark to see them. If you poured 7-Up, I should be talking about Pepsi Cola and Sprite so that I'm not favoring one of these commercial companies. If you take that and you pour it in there, you have a better chance of seeing the bubbles that are percolating at the bottom of the glass, seeing clearly through. But you have that ability. When you're sitting to meditate, even though you're meditating on your method, it enables you to see the thoughts that are arising in the mind. One master said, the crime is not that the thoughts arise in the mind, but that we are too late in discovering that they have arisen. When we're able to instantaneously see all of the thought bubbles arising in the mind, all of the impressions, including those that have not yet arisen, but have the potential to arise, those that are lingering down at the bottom of the glass, waiting to come up. And we are aware of all that. And mind can do this. Not your mind, not the consciousness, but mind can do this. And so that when we practice in this way, the mind is very relaxed because it's not being jerked around by all of these thoughts coming through and pulled this way and pulled that way, from alluring thoughts to discriminating thoughts, to angry thoughts, emotional thoughts, whatever the thoughts are. The mind is not being jerked. It is just simply seeing this as a natural course of causes and conditions. As a natural course of pratika samappada, causes and conditions never fail. As a natural course of its true nature. This is the practice of jhana. This is how you overcome the obstructions. It's very simple. But we are too enamored in ourselves, too interested in us getting the ribbon, the prize, whatever it is. And so we mess everything up. We don't see it in this proper discernment. Master Ling Chi said that if you do not properly practice, you will continually be twisted and turned by habitual patterns for lifetime after lifetime. You'll never be able to gain any peace in any of that. I'm kind of going into overtime because I started a little bit late, but even so, I'm not, as usual, I'm not going to finish. Another obstruction is satisfaction, where we gain a satisfaction and say, this is it. It doesn't get any better than this. And I remember seeing a beer commercial like that, where there's these fishermen that are sitting on a veranda with their feet up on the wooden rail and looking down at the river, and they have a beer in their hand, and they just look at each other and say, it doesn't get much better than this. And I was thinking, really? You guys are like really underachievers. You know, if a beer will buy you peace and happiness for your life, my gosh, you know, oh, you need to sit and meditate. This kind of a satisfaction that we have, that we've gotten somewhere. We have a level to our practice, and we can sit and if we were in a sitting contest, we'd be one of the last ones to stand up. You know, I guess that would show your level, which it does. No, you have a feeling that you can just sit and sit and sit and sit. But it isn't that. Shifu used to say, when you would go to a retreat, he would say, do you come here to practice the Dharma or practice your legs? And so he was saying that to the people who were accomplished practitioners that could just sit and sit and sit. And but they, getting off the cushion, did not reflect the stationariness of their body in their everyday life. But they become accustomed to that, and it's very easy to do that. And you see a lot of older practitioners sitting in that. Sometimes I talk about it as lazy dog Chan, where you're just sitting there, kind of like an old dog lying on the lawn on a warm day with a little bit of a breeze, and you're just lying there and just feel so comfortable. And so when you get up, you shake yourself off, stretch, and you move about your business, but nothing really happened. It was just that you were just sitting comfortably. But you've lost that ability, that lean and hungry look, that ability to want to move forward with your practice. You just, that's it for this lifetime. You know, I can sit like this, and I've seen many people do that, and I just see it, and I go, what a shame. What a shame, you know. I look at people like Harry as the opposite of that. You know, Harry's going to die with a Dharma book in his hand. You know, that's just the way it's going to be, because he keeps going. He still has that interest on looking and practicing and stuff, rather than just saying, this is enough for this lifetime. I'm good. I'll give money, you know, to the poor or to the monastics or whatever, you know, I'll contribute, but, you know, I don't need it. I don't, you know, I didn't get it this lifetime, but I'm comfortable where I stop. Don't have that attitude. You should practice until the very last moment. That kind of a satisfaction is an obstruction to the practice too. Don't do that. You practice until the very end. You don't want to die, you know, like a very beautiful corpse. You want to die where people will look at you and go, my God, he looks wasted, boy, you know, and they go, yeah, Gilbert, he never stopped practicing. He was practicing and teaching till the last moment. Look at him. He's all worn out. I'd rather have it like that. I want to see the body. No, we have a closed casket. He's too used up. You don't want to see him now. No, I don't want them to say, oh, look, you know, and that lily looks so beautiful on his chest there. He looks like he's sleeping. No, we don't want to sleep. We want to practice. So if you're older, don't think that you can't get it. Look at Robert. Robert came like he was already had gray hair when I talked to him, and I had hair then, but I lost my hair trying to teach him. But he's progressed incredibly and Rong Chen too is another one that's there. They were at a certain level, they jumped up because they're sincere in their practice. Never be satisfied with where you're at. Always have that ability to look into things and try to practice the best you can. Got just a little bit more time. When we practice, it's very important, really to put down any kind of a idea that you're trying to get anything out of it. When my best practices came was after I finally put down and said, there's nothing to pick up, nothing to put down, just practice sincerely. And then realizations would come. But when the realizations come, you put them down immediately. You don't carry them around. You don't put them on your chest like some kind of a war theater medal that you went and you were fighting all of these different things, or you got these realizations. They're useless in that way. And so you have to put them down. The people who carry them around on their chest, then as some kind of medals, they're so worried about somebody challenging them that, hey, that's a fake medal. That's not a real one. And so they're constantly trying to protect themselves in terms of that. You shouldn't have that attitude. Your attitude is just simply to practice. You shouldn't think of trying to achieve this enlightenment. You have the vow to do that. But Shifu used to say that you need the two eyes to stay on the practice. One eye should not be looking towards enlightenment. Then you can never get it. But if both eyes are sincerely on the practice, then this is the way that you do it. The last thing I'll tell you, and it's a very, very simple one, that Shifu said, was the practice is like climbing up a fog enshrouded mountain. So you're climbing up the mountain, but there's fog all around you. You don't know how far it is to the top. You don't know how many steps it is, but you just keep walking up one step after another, and you know that you're climbing up because of the angle. So that's all you need to know, is that you're moving forward, and you don't worry about how long it will take you to get there or what will be there when you get there. You just keep practicing in this way. And this was something that really helped me a lot, because actually what the fog is the idea of the self. Little by little, then as you begin to walk up, that is that solitary peak that empty cloud Master Xu Yun was talking about, that one gets to, but we don't even know that. It's just that because we just keep putting one step in front of the other. Do it this way and you'll not be far from it. So thank you for letting me talk to you about these obstructions. I'll take questions. Yes, Harry. Hold on. Where's
there you go. Hi, Gilbert.
Hello.
Okay. I'd like the name of that beer, by the way, that is the end all and be all that you mentioned. I'd like to just make two points. First one has to do with just the difficulties of using language to describe some of these things. So if someone were sitting on a park bench and daydreaming, and someone came over to them and asked, "What are you doing?" She might legitimately say, "I'm just sitting," right? And that's not what we're talking about. So if you were to be meditating the way Vimalakirti described to Sariputra, when mind is minding mind, there is no sitting. There's no just itself is a limitation, right? I mean, you have to use something to describe it, but and then there's the awareness. I'm just bringing up a kind of an issue. That's the first point. Second point was about the faith. And one of the best expressions of faith I know is in Zen mind, beginner's mind, where Suzuki says we should attain enlightenment before we attain enlightenment. And if you really ponder what he means by that, it's having this deep faith in what we're doing.
Well, to talk about that, I think what he's referring to, Suzuki's referring to, is samsaric enlightenment. This is just the realization of that everything is a dream. And so listening to that, that's what gives you the faith to practice. And so it is an enlightenment within samsara that this world is not real. And that's what he's talking about is, and it's a very good point that you make, Harry, because it's very, very curious, because people would go, what the heck is he talking about? But it is this idea of letting go of everything in samsara, but understanding that this world is a dream. And then from there, one can practice. This is why the Diamond Sutra is there and saying it's a dream. They don't presuppose that everybody's going to get it on the first reading, but at least they're letting them know how to prepare the mind and how to keep from conceptualizing about things. And then that is when we let go of conceptualization or the conditioned mind, then this so-called enlightenment will happen. And the enlightenment is just simply the direct experience of mind itself, that without any obstructions in it. That is not samsaric. That is apart from words and phrases. That is not an experience. That's just the thusness of mind. But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's a pretty good clarification, because when we look at it and we talk about it, we have to try to understand. Just sitting, if that lady was just simply sitting, then that's just sitting. But if she was sitting and reminiscing about things that were happening in her life, or disturbed by the pigeons or whatever, then that's another thing. But if someone's just simply sitting, they just simply sitting. It's very interesting. But yeah, there's a point where it's very, that's why I went back to this, and I was less mindful back then about how I was presenting this with the yous and I's and we's in there. And I kind of excised a lot of those this time around. So good. Thank you for your comments. Sam.
Hello, Gilbert. How are you? Thank you for your lecture today. I also was going to say, speaking of retreats, I think I've agreed with Michael. I think we're going to plan to come to your retreat in October. So that'll be my first, and I hope to get through quite a bit of leg pain and a few other things. But my question for you is, in relation to meditation, I've been coming across the term samadhi a lot in different texts, hearing it from different practitioners, and I was just curious to hear from your words what your explanation or pointers may be on understanding samadhi.
Samadhi, there's generally two terms that are presented in tandem. One of them is the samadhi, and the other is vipassana or illumination. These terms were originally, they're Sanskrit, but they're originally used quite extensively by Theravada, but they're also used by Mahayana practitioners to show silent illumination. The samadhi is this concentration of the mind, sometimes they refer to samatha first, and then samadhi, which is this ability to keep the mind on task and without any kind of semblance of a life and being, personality, or an ego. And so when we have this kind of a concentration in mind in the present moment, it is balanced with vipassana, or illumination of the mind. Without the concentration, we cannot get to the illumination. And but there has to be a balance there, so it's not just simply a very hard concentration, as much as just holding everything like this, just very lightly. And so it's counterintuitive, this type of a samadhi that we hold very lightly. When we start losing it, we have to apply more mind attention or concentration to be able to get it to this point. But as we hold it just lightly, then the illumination side will come. So it has to do with the practice aspect. The illumination is more of the wisdom that's generated out of that, or we could say insight. And because at this point, in the beginning, it's wisdom, but later on, when it reaches the level of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, this unexcelled highest wisdom, it's no longer wisdom. It is just simply the function of mind. And the function of mind naturally reflects the 37 factors of enlightenment, the Eightfold Path, the 10 paramitas or 6 paramitas. It reflects those naturally in body, speech, and mind. In the present moment, everything is demonstrated in this way. To get there, one has to have the concentration, the samadhi, where we're disciplined the mind to not just simply follow any kind of an appearance in mind. And as a result of that, then there is illumination. So that is what they're referring to as this samadhi. It's something that is a balance that you'll find you'll get as you go along. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Gilbert.
You're welcome. Good question. Robert, you got a question?
Thank you, Gilbert. Thank you very much. I have one question and a comment. The question is, just sitting, comparing just sitting or wall gazing and using a method, let's say counting breath, counting sheep, counting 1, 2, 3. It seems when you're just sitting and trying to count, it seems very disturbing, because I try to do that. It's almost like trying to do two things. But it's much easier when you just sit without worrying about any method. It's like sit without any method. Just rest the mind. It's almost like the more you rest, it's automatic. You can see the bubble. You can see the thoughts even before they even percolate.
Can you see what's seeing it?
Say that again.
Can you see what's seeing it? There is your sin.
I cannot see what is seeing it.
Because that's mine. So you have to be careful with how you present this. Now that you're getting more sagacious, you cannot make those fatal mistakes. So when you say you seeing in the thing, mind is looking into that.
I got it. I got it.
You'll never get it.
Okay, I will never get it. Okay, the second, I will never get it. The second one is your example of Master Sheng talking about the cloud, climbing up the hill of the cloud. Over the last 5 years, before I learned Chan, I was in flatland, covered in cloud. I don't even know it. But after I attend your first session, then I realized that I'm in so much cloud, not before even climbing the mountain, before even any practice. At least I see the cloud. But as I practice, I still see a cloud, but at a certain point, two or 3 years into it, knowing the cloud, then I find the joy of it is the cloud come by and then they will go away. And then there's cracks in between. It's like when I'm dealing with daily event, as long as I see those things as cloud or self or the thinking that is trying to fool me maybe, but it's almost like if I know it and not following it, I can see through the cracks. It's like momentarily you see you kind of know the situation in a different perspective, and then it's like all of a sudden you say, oh, it's obvious. And then as long as I don't get carried away with all those clouds trying to fool me, like all those habits, all those old memory, old habit, old anticipation. If I just look at this current situation as is, that cracks. There's light in between those floating clouds. I mean, that's the fun part of practicing Chan off the cushion during the day. It's a lot of fun.
Shifu, he used to say, the entire world testifies to mind. He said the clouds, as they float by in the sky is mine, but the clouds are mine too. When we see it in this way, this is called penetrating the cloud. The cloud doesn't have to leave the sky. It is just simply seen in its proper place in accordance with Pratika Samappada as the creator of the cloud. This is difficult for us to understand, that how the mind can create all of these things, but it does in that way. That's why they say it's neither sacred nor profane. So as you're working and progressing, just simply see through even the clouds. Don't try to look for the cracks. Just now just see everything as mind, even the clouds. And you're ready for that now. I shouldn't say you, mind is. Okay, try it that way. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I understand it's a progression, so that's fine. And Robert is very wise to be able to talk and to test his understanding, because even if it's a slight correction or whatever, it can make a difference between living and dying. And so to him, he doesn't have the thing saying, what if I say this and I'm wrong? There's no wrong. What's wrong is not asking the question. If you have a question, then you need to ask it, because if not now, when? And who is going to answer your questions? How many times do you have an opportunity to have your questions answered from a well-known advisor? That's why I leave this time open, is for people to have questions, and we all learn from whatever Robert says. There's great merit in that. So I thank you for your question, and hopefully that will help you a little bit more. Okay, good.
Thank you, Gilbert. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's helpful. Anybody else today? It's open mic. Nobody? I'll be going to San Francisco, by the way, Letty. I don't know if you're signed up or not, but at the end of this month, I'm going there for like a 4-day retreat. So anybody wants to go there, you're welcome to show up. And so that's coming up. And then we still have one lecture left on my LA group that I'm going to be doing. And that one's going to be on modern day masters, which will be very helpful, because a lot of us, we don't know who the modern day masters are, and we don't spend that much time studying them. But I think it's very important, because it is what guided Shifu into his humanistic Chan. And this was, you could say, a another semi-turning of the Dharma wheel into this humanistic Chan, and taking care of the world and the people in it, and creating this kind of a pure land for practice in this dream world. So that'll be coming up as well. Wendy, you have a question?
Thank you. My question is, I go up one retreat after another, try to
Get hit by a lightning bolt?
yeah, something like that. It's not working.
Go ahead.
No, so what's wrong? So
Nothing's wrong. I would be more surprised if you told me that you'd go every night to play bingo, and haven't gotten enlightened yet, except for your pocketbook might be more enlightened. But no, there's nothing wrong. You're doing what you have to be doing. Don't think that there's a set time when anything happens. Just keep going, practicing sincerely. Listen to the lectures and listen to and take to heart and put into practice what I've presented to you on how to practice. Really practice sincerely in this way. It will come to you in due time. It will come to you. If not in this lifetime, the next lifetime. But you're developing credits for all of this. In terms of that, you will in this lifetime change other people's lives, and that's what counts. When we look at it and we say, did I make a difference here? Did I change anybody? Did I bring anybody to the Dharma? Did I bring anybody to stop from suffering? Whatever it is, we look at this and see, even in the smallest way, this is how we measure what we did here on earth. Don't worry about getting the grand prize. You're already there. You're coming to the classes. Congratulations. Really, congratulations. This is the way it is. It's so precious. Every week you have a chance to listen to such precious Dharma, not just simply because I'm saying it, because the Dharma is precious. The more you practice in this way, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Don't think anything. If something was wrong, then you wouldn't be showing up for the classes. But here you are. That's proof that it's working. So congratulations.
No, my point is what you said there. In life, you can use your mind doesn't move when the clouds come, but I keep sitting, but it's divided. Sitting and life is not together. Like I sit, but in life, when clouds come, I guess that ability is.
You just have to put the practice into your daily life. Just think body, speech, and mind all the time. Just use that as your mantra, body, speech, and mind. What am I thinking? What am I doing? What am I saying? Should I say this in this moment? Should I do this? Should I think this? And then you just naturally, the mind will align itself with mind itself. And so you just keep practicing in this way. It will come to you little by little. It's not something that it's like a shot, you get an injection like COVID and you won't get COVID. Okay. You just keep practicing. You're doing the right thing. Just be patient. It will come to you. Just practice off the cushion. You'll get it. Trust me, you're going to get it. You have a good condition to practice. You have ups and downs and kind of a topsy-turvy life, but there's probably not too many of us that don't have that kind of a topsy-turvy life. Anybody here that doesn't have a topsy-turvy life, raise your hand. Everything's going well in your life all the time, 24/7. You see, nobody's going to raise their hand, because that's just the way it is. So you're fine.
Thank you.
Yeah. Keep practicing. You're doing fine. Tori, okay, we'll take this one last one for today.
Thank you so much, Gilbert. Please excuse that I'm not feeling very good tonight, so I'm not having my video on. I just want to verify that. First of all, thank you so much for the talk. I really appreciate it. It's very helpful. Just want to verify that the way that I practice meditation right now is on the right track. So what I usually do is that I would, after I, becoming more relaxed, I start just observing whatever comes and goes, thoughts. I used to do counting, but I find that I just hold the attention a little bit too much, and I find the concept of self is just a little bit too much when I'm doing the counting. So instead of doing that, I just start watching everything with its thoughts, with its sensation, with its feelings, with its the senses that I'm picking up information, with its sounds or something. And then what I would do is another part of me would turn that awareness around and just look at the awareness itself and stop on the awareness. But there, of course, there's another part still going to pick up whatever information coming in or just thoughts coming and going. So I kind of hold that attention like on both ways, like observing whatever comes and goes, and the other part is focusing or becoming just like stay with the awareness itself. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope that's the right way of doing it.
When I first started out, I used to teach a cat and mouse practice where you sit like a cat in front of one of those cartoon little holes where the mice come out, and you wait until a thought arises and then you pounce on it. This is not a very high level of practice, but it gives you the idea of seeing when thoughts are arising in the mind. But then I changed it for a little more high level and said, watch the cat. Don't watch the mice, watch the cat. This is turning the mind's eye inward, and you should use your mind to watch mind.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that. You can do that. Okay. This is what I was telling Robert was don't worry about the clouds. That's mind too. So when you reverse the eye, turn the mind's eye inward, the mind is looking at mind, because everything that it sees, everything that's manifesting is mind. It may be transitory in terms of the appearances, but that which it's projected upon is mind. So when you turn it this way, there's no thought. There's just simply an awareness of these things that are arising in mind that are mind. They're not separate from it. It is made from the substance of mind. And when you do that, then you don't look at individual pieces. You see it as the totality. What the Huayans talked about, the totality of consciousness. So the totality of consciousness is wall gazing. You're just simply sitting and just sitting. But now I've given you a little extra piece to it, which is where you're going with this as well, which is just let the mind look at mind. Okay. So there's no distinguishing between what is this knowing mind and what is mind. There's then a fusion of this that doesn't run through the consciousness. Consciousness is seen there as some temporary appearance, but the fusion of mind with mind is this direct contemplation that you use when you're sitting to meditate. So thank you very much for your question, because it actually is very good, and it's showing that you're naturally kind of letting the mind lead you to where it should be. And that's because you're listening to the lectures and you're picking it up and you're putting it into practice, and it makes a big difference. So good for you. I mean, you're still, I wouldn't call you a novice anymore. I think you got an extra stripe by now. So I promoted you. Okay.
It's thank you. It's hard. Like sometimes I still, like what you were saying earlier rings true with the sleepiness, and never before experienced this level of relaxation in the mind, or the brain does not know what to do and just falls asleep. It's still a struggle.
It's okay. In due time, it'll all come together. You see some of the people here, that have been practicing for a long time, and they still struggle at times. But one thing that I can see, and I can see the faces that are here, there's not one of them that isn't a practitioner. Mm-hmm. Not one of them. But if you ask them, is your life fine and dandy? They'll say, no, I still have this and these things happening because we're in samsara. What do we expect? This is not a pure land as it appears, but it is a pure land. We just don't understand that. Once we understand that, then we begin to change it, through mind. And so it's very, very interesting. Just keep playing with all of this stuff, just like what Robert does. He plays with it, and he gets kind of where he's at, and you see Harry, he keeps relating it to other things that he's read or studied or whatever. It's just things that we do. We just kind of listen and then put it into work. And then after a while, then you become one of those that is helping other people, and fulfilling your vow to deliver others, even though maybe you haven't taken the Bodhisattva vow yet, but you will, you're still on your way with that. And so you'll be fine. Okay. I really thank your question. It's a good comment. That's exactly what this time is for, is to help people to practice, and do things. So in any case, thank you, Letty. And okay, I think I have to go on and see what my refrigerator will bestow upon me for dinner. So again, I'm sorry I came in a little late. I honestly thought it was Tuesday. I just had barely gotten home, and when they were talking to me, it was like I was kind of waking up from a dream. So Esther was saying, "Are you coming to the class?" And I'm going, "I had it yesterday." But anyway, obviously that wasn't the case. Anyway, so it's good. I will see you all next week.